What this creates is a space in between that we call the Bowman's space. Okay, so let's label this out first. So this is called the Bowman's capsule. And then the space in here is called the Bowman's space. Okay, and this is where our filtrate ends up as we filter the blood out across this membrane, and we create essentially what is going to become urine within the Bowman's space, okay? So this is basically the renal corpuscle. So this is the first part of the nephron. Now the remainder of the nephron is what we call the tubular structures. And they start off with the proximal convoluted tubes. The proximal convoluted tubule, and we call this proximal convoluted because it's kind of windy or bendy, just like this. So this is the proximal convoluted tubule. Then we get into the loop of Henle, which dips down into the medulla. And then we get to the distal convoluted tubule. And then we get to the distal structures. And I'll label these out here in a minute. Okay. So this is a part of the tubular structure. So we've got a lumen going along here. And this is our distal convoluted tubule. And then this is our collecting duct. Okay, so let's kind of label these out here. So we have the proximal convoluted tubule. And this just means that this area is kind of windy or bendy. It's not straight. Let's put this in red. We've got the distal convoluted tubule. And then the area that dips down into the medulla is called the loop of Henle. And it's named after the physiologist who described it, but this is basically the region that goes into the medulla, and this is going to interact with the vasa recta. I'll talk about what the vasa recta is, but let's just put in brackets here, vasa recta. Okay, alrighty. And then the final area where we pretty much drain that final liquid that becomes urine, this is called the collecting duct. Okay, and then from the collecting duct, we head towards the minor calyces, the major calyces, and you'll speak more about those structures. So this way we go towards the ureter. And you'll speak more about the remaining structures here when you look at the anatomy and that. But basically, this is the final area where that final product, which is urine at this point, can drain towards the ureters, to go towards the bladder, to leave the body. Okay, so this is our structure of the nephron. Okay, and we want to talk about two main divisions of the nephron structures. So I'll point those out down here as well. So these two structures, so the glomerulus and the Bowman's capsule together, these are called the renal corpuscle. Right, and the renal corpuscle is the glomerulus plus, oops, it should have been an equal, plus the Bowman's capsule. And that's the renal corpuscle. And again, this is found only up in the cortex. Then the remaining structures here, these are called the tubular structures. And they are individually named. We went through the individual names, but together we call them the tubular structures. Okay. And so this is a really important backdrop for understanding how urine is created. So urine is pretty much filtered blood. We take blood that's coming into the kidneys, we filter it across the glomerulus. Now, some things will not go through. We've got fenestrated capillaries here. Some things will go through those pores. Some things like red blood cells and large proteins will not. And then we create this filtrate in the Bowman space, but that's not the end of it. The remaining tubular structures are vital to fine-tuning that filtrate to then create urine, okay? So basically the proximal convoluted tubule, the loop of Henle, which is involved with the vasa recta, the distal convoluted tubule, these are the areas where we're fine-tuning that filtrate. We're reabsorbing certain things, reclaiming those important nutrients or sodium or potassium, and we're excreting or secreting certain things that the body does not want, like detoxification of drugs or any type of waste products. And we're fine-tuning this filtrate to create urine. Now, the end part of the renal, the tubular structures, this is the area where most of the water is reabsorbed. And I'll go on to kind of explain this in more detail, but I want to make that distinction now. So at this part of the nephron, we're reclaiming important nutrients and important ions. At this part of the nephron, we're really focusing on regulating our water balance. So how much water does the body need? We can reabsorb that, or if we want to lose some water, if we have excess water, we can secrete it out here. So when we speak about reabsorption and secretion, we're speaking about them in terms of things moving back into the tubular structures here, or out of the tubular structures and back into the blood, okay?